Is the weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. During the week ahead, we'll see rather unsettled weather across the UK, rain for all of us at times, often quite blustery, but temperatures will start to climb, certainly later on in the week. We've got an area of low pressure pushing in from the northwest at the moment, pushing outbreaks of rain, quite brisk winds from the northwest across the UK, those tightly packed ice bars indicating quite blustery conditions. So it's a pretty wet end to the day across the south of the UK, and there's a band of showery rain moving in across Scotland, accompanied by blustery winds here. And as we go through the evening into the overnight period, those outbreaks of rain across the south clear to give some clearer spells. Those showery outbreaks across the north push into some central parts and turning cold enough behind that under clear spells across Scotland for a touch of frost by Monday morning. Staying a bit milder in the south, and here we'll see a bit of early sunshine on Monday, whereas across the north of the UK, Monday gets off to a pretty blustery start and going to be quite a few showers pushing in across the north of Scotland. Notice some white colours here indicating some snow across the highest ground in Scotland. The showers a bit more scattered, pushing south into Northern Ireland and mostly fine across the central belt, southern parts of Scotland at this stage in the day. A few showers across the north of England into the Midlands and parts of Wales, and towards the south we see some sunshine to start the new working week. As we go through the rest of Monday then, we hold on to sunshine and showers certainly through the morning. Again, some of those showers could be quite blustery with keen northwesterly winds blowing. The showers start to ease from the west as we head through the day though, so many parts becoming fine into the afternoon. But notice by the end of the afternoon, further outbreaks of rain starting to push in from the west across Northern Ireland. Temperatures once again quite disappointing for the time of year, even though it's not quite as blustery as during the weekend. Highs of around 8 or 9 in the north, up to 13 or 14 degrees down towards the south of the UK. For the evening on Monday, outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland start to push their way eastwards across all parts of the UK as we head into the evening and overnight period. Notice some snow across the high ground in Scotland. As we go through the rest of the week, it stays unsettled. Further rain at times, often quite blustery, but temperatures starting to climb later on in the week, certainly by the time we get to Thursday and Friday.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can become our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps 4, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on a BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, 6 o'clock. Let's get you up to date with the headlines from the GB Newsroom. The Justice Secretary says a convicted sex offender who's been arrested following his accidental release from prison on Friday will be deported this week. Haresh Kabaru was found in the Finsbury Park area of North London this morning after a 2-day manhunt. He was apprehended thanks to information that was offered by members of the public. He was jailed last month for assaulting a woman and a teenage girl in Essex. It's understood the Ethiopian was directed to the train station by prison staff following his release. David Lammy's confirmed a member of staff at HMP Chelmsford's been suspended and says the government must get to the bottom of how this happened.
This was totally unacceptable. I will be making a statement in Parliament tomorrow. There will be a further and full investigation into how this happened. It's right that he's questioned by the police following his route from Essex into London, and then of course 48 hours in which he has been basically around. It's right that we get to the bottom of what's happened over the course of those 48 hours, but I can assure you that he will be deported as he was expected to be deported. I expect that to happen this week.
2 suspects have been arrested over the robbery of crown jewels from the Louvre Museum last Sunday. They're believed to have been part of a gang who broke into the Apollo Gallery and made off with jewellery valued at around £76 million. One was apprehended while waiting to board a flight from Charles de Gaulle Airport. MPs are planning to defy convention by debating Prince Andrew's conduct, the stripping of his dukedom and his continued residence in Royal Lodge. The Liberal Democrats have indicated they will use their next Opposition Day debate to allow members to discuss the issues. They're calling for the Prince and the Crown Estate to give evidence under oath in Parliament. Politicians have traditionally refrained from criticising the royal family in the House of Commons. Andrew agreed to no longer use his titles last Friday after continuing revelations concerning his links to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump's overseen the signing of a ceasefire deal between Thailand and Cambodia after a cross-border conflict there earlier this year. The ceremony, which the US president requested, took place shortly after he arrived in the Malaysian capital. The 2 countries have agreed to start demilitarising their borders after 5 days of fighting that took place in July. It's one of 8 wars he claims to have ended. Trump danced with performers who greeted him as he arrived in Kuala Lumpur. It's the first stop on a week-long trip to the region, which includes a much-anticipated meeting with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping.
8 wars that my administration has ended in just 8 months. There's never been anything like that. Never. There never will be either. I can't think of any president that ever solved one war. I don't think anybody. They start wars, they don't solve them. I shouldn't say it's a hobby because it's so much more serious than a hobby, but it's something that I'm good at and it's something I love to do.
Russia says it's tested a new nuclear-powered cruise missile which has an unlimited range. Russia's top general told President Putin the Burevestnik missile travels nearly 900 miles and was in the air for 15 hours during the test. President Putin, meanwhile, says a meeting with Donald Trump to discuss the war in Ukraine, scheduled to take place in Hungary, has not been cancelled, but instead more preparation is needed. Finally, Hurricane Melissa has been strengthened into a Category 4 hurricane that is threatening to cause havoc in parts of the Caribbean. It's already reached Haiti and the Dominican Republic, killing 4 people, and residents in Jamaica are being warned of potentially catastrophic flooding and landslides when it hits the island. That's expected to happen late on Monday or early on Tuesday morning. It is expected to bring winds of up to 115 miles per hour and torrential rain of up to 25 inches. Authorities are warning of a threat to life, and they're urging residents to batten down the hatches and seek shelter immediately. And those are your headlines. I'll be back with another news bulletin at 7 o'clock.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
The Epping migrant who was released in error from HMP Chelmsford on Friday has been arrested. Adushka Batu was arrested by Met police officers in the Finsbury Park area of North London at around 8:30 a.m. That's around an hour ago this morning. With me now, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting. Wes Streeting, thank you for joining us today on the Camilla Tominey Show. Your reaction to the fact that this individual has been captured by police?
Well, what a relief, and I just want to say a massive thank you to members of the public whose vigilance provided the police with vital intelligence that allowed him to be tracked down to Newbury Park, where he's been arrested and detained and will now be deported. But as you've just been discussing, this is an unbelievable turn of events and should never have happened. And many of us are asking ourselves this morning, how on earth could someone who has been convicted of a serious crime, who was due for deportation, instead be released onto our streets? The Justice Secretary has ordered an investigation into this. That will look at what went wrong, how on earth this could have happened, and who was responsible and what we're going to do about it. And we will obviously be transparent and upfront with Parliament and with the public about all of those things, because I think the whole country has been shocked, frankly, that this could have happened. So we will get to the bottom of it and there will be accountability.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely, and there must be accountability. Just on this issue, do you know what happened this morning? Is anyone telling you what happened within the government? Obviously, he was detained at 8:30 a.m. Do you know what role the members of the public had? Would you like to say thank you to them, and would you like to apologise, frankly, to the victims of this man?
Yeah, so all I know is what I've said already, which is the police were able to track him down to Finsbury Park. That was thanks to vital intelligence that came from vigilant members of the public. So I do want to say on behalf of the government an enormous thank you. I am appalled that this man was released. He should never have been on our streets. We will get to the bottom of what went wrong, and we will make sure there is accountability and transparency with the public, because the problem is when things like this happen, and I'm afraid I do not accept that these things just happen. I know that this has been a problem for many years. It's a problem under the previous government as well, where we had high profile and in some cases less high profile cases of prisoners being wrongfully released. But these things should not happen. So we will be getting to the bottom of what went wrong in this case, as well as doing everything we can to make sure that in future we do not see people on our streets who should not be there.
But on the issue of releasing individuals early, it really is a Labour problem, isn't it? Numbers up 128%. 262 prisoners are released early, mistakenly released in England and Wales. It really is on Labour's watch. You can blame the Tories for a lot of things, let me tell you, but on this one, it's down to you. The buck stops with, frankly, Shabana Mahmood as Justice Secretary and now David Lammy.
Well, it is certainly our responsibility to clean up this mess, because that is the mandate that we were given by the country at the last general election. This has been a problem for some years. This is a problem that has plagued the previous government and now this government. We will make sure that we sort this out. I mean, we inherited a prison system in an absolutely dire state. I say that by way of context, but not by way of excuse, because even taking into account the creaking prison system that we inherited and the fact that prisons were literally full to bursting when we came into office, that still does not explain or excuse how people have been released onto our streets who should not be there. And we've got a problem with the sort of culture that just says, oh, these things happen. And I see this reflected right across the public sector. It's why I'm taking such a tough stance on maternity, because I do not accept when you see the numbers of babies dying and the number of women dying in childbirth, that these things just happen. I think there are all sorts of things in our country that over time and over years have just been accepted as business as usual, and we cannot do that. And I think the message that the voters have sent us, particularly in the Caerphilly by-election on Thursday, which was an extraordinarily bad result for Labour, the message that the country is sending us is they elected us to deliver change, and they want to feel that change. They want to see and experience that change. And so we have got to be bolder, and we've got to go hard at the modernisation and reform of the public sector. We cannot tolerate this kind of failure. And let me tell you, the Prime Minister will not tolerate this kind of failure. And I know I speak for the Prime Minister, the Home Secretary and the Justice Secretary when I convey the anger that I feel and they feel about the fact that this dangerous offender was on our streets rather than on a plane.
The problem is, West Streeton, that even when the PM is angry, nothing seems to change. He was angry a week last Friday about this individual, these Maccabi Tel Aviv football fans couldn't come to Villa Park. They're now not going to come. You've seen record channel crossings this week, passing the figure from all of 2024. You've got a hokey-cokey migrant, one in, one out, one in again. He's still here. The rape gang inquiry on the brink of collapse. You've been wiped out in Caerphilly, a seat where you've represented for over a century. What is going on? Is governing, frankly, too much for the Labour Party?
No, I do think that, you know, when we came in, right across the board, right across all of our public services and also, frankly, in the economy as well, we inherited a country that was in a state, and there are still big challenges, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise, and I'm not going to pretend that the list of things you just reeled off are not real, serious challenges where we have got to raise our game and go harder and faster at turning things around. There have been some green shoots of recovery in our country since we came in. Interest rates, for example, have fallen 5 times, and wages have been rising faster than living costs for the first time in years. We're finally getting NHS waiting lists down, turning the tide after years and years of waiting lists going up. So there have been significant achievements under our belt, but as I say, there is no room for complacency. There are still big challenges, and we've heard the message from the voters. And the worst thing we could do after Caerphilly, which you mentioned just there, is pretend the voters were sending us a different message, or pretend that the anger that exists about the failure of public services and some of the examples of state failure don't exist. We've got to take that on the chin, take it to heart, and in the same way that Keir Starmer took the Labour Party almost by the scruff of its neck to reform it and modernise it and make sure it was electable at the last election, we've now got to do the same thing to the state, and that is exactly what we will do.
Look, West Streeton, your honesty is to be welcomed, frankly. It is to be welcomed. But I think voters, GB News viewers and listeners, they simply want your government to get a grip. And it's not happening. You appear to be passengers in office, not saying you personally, but there's a sense that you're just drifting along and nothing, the change you promised last July is not happening. When will you get a grip?
Well, all I'd say to your viewers this morning is that we've got the message, and we know that it will be actions that you will judge us by, not by words. So I'm not just going to reel off a whole list of promises this morning, because I know it's the improvements that people want to see. All I would say is that there are grounds for some confidence and optimism. If you take the NHS, for example, we told you before the election we'd deliver 2 million more appointments in our first year. We've delivered over 5 million. We said we'd recruit 1,000 more GPs in our first year. We've recruited 2,500. And those are examples of some of the green shoots of recovery. I would be the first to admit, though, there are still enormous challenges in the NHS. So I want people to know we're not complacent. We know there is a lot more to do, and we know that the public are expecting us to raise our game. And that we'll take that feedback on the chin, and we will show through our actions, not our words, that we are repaying the trust that people put in us at the last election.
Look, West Streeton, you are treating more people who need treated, and that is your basic job as Health Secretary. That is a very good thing. But you have also given a big pay rise to junior doctors, 29% over 3 years. You said last year that would end strikes. They're happening again next month. They've come back for more, as many forecasts would happen. Will you hold the line, or will it just get worse because they want more money, these resident doctors?
No, I am holding the line, Chris, and I think many of your viewers will agree that a 28.9% pay rise, the highest in the entire public sector, was real progress for those resident doctors on pay, and people will understand why at this stage I can't afford to go further at this time. And what really frustrates me about this impending strike action is that I've put on the table the offer of a deal on training places and jobs that these doctors are crying out for, not in the future, but I can do that right now. And I can also take action on things like some of the exam fees and course costs that resident doctors face. But I won't be able to afford to do that if I'm instead spending £250 million on meeting the cost of these strikes. So where we are at the moment will be a lose-lose situation where they set back the NHS, disrupt patients' treatment, put pressure on other NHS staff, and also shoot themselves in the foot because I won't be able to do the things that I want to do for them on jobs and training places. If they get round the table, call off these strikes and work with us, we can deliver those training places for people who are applying for them right now. That is the opportunity available. But Chris, I'm not going to be held to ransom. We are not a pushover. And the message to resident doctors is you can work with us and everyone wins, or you can go on strike and everyone loses. But there is not a more pro-health secretary, pro-NHS health secretary waiting in the wings.
No.
We know that Reform wants to replace the NHS with an insurance-style system. That's the choice facing the country at the next general election. And resident doctors might just want to work with a health secretary that wants to work with them, rather than be lumbered with a Reform government that wants to dismantle the NHS. The choice is theirs.
Can I ask you quickly about the budget? There's a report today you're going to whack the wealthiest with big taxes, but isn't the truth you'll need to break your pledge from last July to increase income tax, national insurance for employees or VAT? Something's got to give to pay for the priorities that you've got, given the sluggish productivity that the OBR have found in the economy.
Well, I've seen all the wild speculation about the budget. I think I'm not going to speculate. I'm going to wait for the Chancellor to set out a budget. People can see the public's finances are in a challenging state. So's the economy, but also so's family finances, so business finances. We recognise that. We've got to get our economy growing again. There have been some encouraging signs in terms of interest rates, and the UK projected to be the fastest growing economy in the G7. Those are all things that are cause for encouragement, but we're not out of the woods yet. The Chancellor's got a challenging job. She's got lots of considerations to balance, and she will set out her choices at the budget and not before.
Look, Wes Streeting, we've taken you for long enough. Thank you so much for joining us live on the Camilla Tominey Show. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Five hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
We have a very interesting guy in the studio called Will Whitehorn, who's a space expert. And the reason we've got Will in is that NASA have plans to send astronauts to live on the moon. And
it's not how you think, though, is it? It's inside glass bubbles that are going to be made from lunar dust.
OK.
Not in houses.
The American Space Agency is funding research to see if it is possible. And let's get Will, who does believe it's possible. And will you be going, Will?
Well, not to the moon, obviously.
No.
That's going to be a bit expensive. But and I think NASA will be sending astronauts who probably had to train for several years. But I do intend to go to space in the next couple of years, yes.
Mm-hmm. So how's it going to work? So NASA's unveiling this plan to send astronauts to live on the moon, living in glass bubbles.
Yeah, made of basically moon dust. So there's a huge amount of silica and other similar materials on the moon. And basically using a microwave process, like a microwave oven, of a very sophisticated type, they're going to be able to meld those and construct, and also using 3D, technology, they'll also be able to construct the interiors on the moon. Now,
See,
that's
I'm
because
interested in
rocketry
this.
is expensive, so it's very expensive to take them up there.
So it's not that you fill a big space container and bring it to the moon full of this stuff and then assemble it there. You're actually going to fabricate it, make it on the lunar surface.
That's one of NASA's plans. So the first mission going back shortly, in which Elon Musk will be involved with the new Starship rocket that you've probably seen. The Starship is the biggest rocket ever built in human history. And that's going to be able to also go to Mars. But it's also going to be able to carry industrial material to space.
Right.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Joining me now is the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp. Chris Philp, thank you for joining us on Camilla Tominey on GB News. Your reaction, please, to the fact this man has been detained.
Good morning. Well, look, it's good that he has been finally caught, but I remain shocked that this inept Labour government let him out in the first place. They should never have allowed his release, and I think David Lammy and Shabana Mahmood have questions to answer because they have presided over this system. It should obviously be now properly investigated. What should happen now to this man is that he should be immediately deported. He is quite clearly a risk to women and girls. Just 8 days after illegally crossing the Channel, he sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl in Essex, and we don't want people in this country who are going to attack women and girls in that way, so he should be immediately deported. It does raise a wider question. He crossed the Channel by small boat, committed this sexual assault within 8 days. In my view, everybody who illegally enters the country should be deported within a week. To do that, we need to leave the ECHR. That is now the Conservative policy. And if illegal immigrants who cross the Channel are removed within a week, either back to their country of origin or a safe third country, that will mean people like this man do not pose a risk to women and girls here. It will also mean the crossings are deterred, and pretty quickly they will stop entirely.
Wider issue of small boats crossing, Chris Philp. On this issue, should there be a statement in the House of Commons tomorrow from David Lammy to say exactly what happened, exactly what went wrong, and frankly, our heads rolling in the prison service, because this has been a complete disgrace and an embarrassment to this country?
This is a big city. Well, it certainly has been a complete disgrace, and yes, David Lammy should absolutely, and Shabana Mahmood should absolutely be giving an account for themselves in Parliament. They're responsible for running this system. Clearly, somehow there was a huge mistake, terrible mistake, between the prison service and immigration enforcement, who should have been picking this man up and taking him into immigration detention for deportation. So between the two of those departments, they messed up spectacularly. Ministers need to apologise, which I don't think they've done so far. They need to come to Parliament to account for their failures, and there needs to be an investigation to determine exactly what went wrong.
Figures show that 262 prisoners in England and Wales were mistakenly released, Chris Philp, in the year to March 2025. Some of that period, of course, you were in power as a Tory government. Labour blames, of course, the early release scheme they started last September by Shabana Mahmood as the Justice Secretary, blamed that on your government for failing to build enough prison spaces, prison cells. Is this, you are to blame for some of this that's caused the chaos in the prison system? You can't blame it all on Labour, can you?
Well, look, they've been in charge for a year and a half now, so they need to take responsibility for what they are presiding over. I mean, we did have record ever police numbers at the point we left office. There were thousands of extra prison places under construction. There is no question we do need more prison places to make sure people who commit crimes get put in prison so the public can be protected. But Labour have been in charge now for quite a while, and it's up to them to take responsibility for what's now happening.
Of course, in the papers that even Labour are starting to regret dropping your Rwanda plan last year. Is it time this government brought that in, or some form of outsourcing of processing to countries in the Western Balkans, for example? All sorts of ideas are happening, but clearly it's not working. Even that individual who the hokey-cokey migrant he's called, he was sent out, one in, one out, one in again into this country. That isn't working either.
Yes, they should definitely bring back Rwanda. That is a scheme that would have meant everyone illegally crossing the channel would have been rapidly removed to Rwanda. That would have had a deterrent effect, because why would people bother crossing from France to the UK if they would wind up in Rwanda? Labour made a huge mistake by cancelling that before it even started. They had this, oh, we're going to smash the gangs gimmick. Well, that didn't work. Now they're saying they're going to send a tiny handful of people back to France. I think they've so far sent 42 people to France. That's all over a time when 16,000 have arrived. Now, clearly, if you've got like a 0.1% chance of getting sent back to France and a 99.9% chance of staying in the UK, that's going to be no deterrent whatsoever. Look, the Conservatives have a clear plan. We're going to come out of the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights, and that will enable us to deport every illegal arrival within a week of arriving, either back to their home country or back to a safe third country like Rwanda if we can't remove them back to their home country. And that will pretty quickly stop people crossing, because why would you cross if you're going to get immediately removed? The USA has done something very similar this year, which has worked. And I think about 12 or 13 years ago, Australia did something similar as well. We know it works, but Labour is too weak to do it, to be honest.
Thank you, Chris. Can I reflect briefly on the Caerphilly by-election? Do you know who your Welsh leader is in Wales?
Well, we have obviously fought that by-election hard. Disappointing result for the main parties. Plaid Cymru obviously won that, and Reform did pretty well. We had a disappointing night because, look, I think we're still in a process of recovery and of renewal, and we're going to keep working hard at that up and down the country. I think our party conference a couple of weeks ago was a bit of a turning point, because we did lay out, I think it was 37 new policies, including the policy to come out of the ECHR, and as I mentioned a second ago, deport every illegal arrival within a week of their feet touching the ground.
Sorry, I don't mean to be rude.
Stamp duty to save £47 billion.
You can't say that it's a turning point when your vote collapsed to 2% in a by-election on Friday. It's not a turning point. It's a complete disaster. You're almost irrelevant to the wider public, certainly in that seat in Wales. Can I ask you again, who is your leader in Wales?
I mean, look, in that seat. The Conservatives have never won that seat. When it was last contested, we got, to be honest, a pretty low share of the vote. That's not an area we've ever been competitive. But there are plenty of other parts of the country where we are competitive. And I do think, just to come back to what I said a second ago, look, I mean, we had a whole load of new policies. Let me just finish. We had a whole load of new policies at our party conference a couple of weeks ago. I know that hasn't yet translated into the opinion polls, but I think it is a turning point, because we now have a very positive agenda with a comprehensive plan, with the only party, including Reform, we're the only party to have a comprehensive plan to fix illegal migration. We had like a 20-page document on fixing illegal migration, a couple of points I've mentioned already, a plan to save £47 billion of public spending, half of which roughly from welfare, which we can then reinvest in abolishing stamp duty completely for primary residences, hiring 10,000 extra police officers to have surge policing in crime hotspots. We're going to double the budget for immigration enforcement so we can remove 150,000 people a year with no right to be here. That is a positive programme that I think we can now take to the country.
And you had 14 years and didn't do it. I've got to ask you again, who is the leader of the Welsh Tories in Wales?
But we've now got
I've asked you 3 times.
A new leader. We're under new leadership. Camilla Badenoch. We're under new leadership.
Yeah, you know her name, right? So who's the leader in Wales?
Previously, Camilla Badenoch was never Prime Minister.
You don't know.
I was never Home Secretary. We now have a new programme to take to the country, and I'm optimistic and positive about the future.
If you don't know, you can say, who is the leader of the Welsh Tories?
Look, I've been explaining our positive programme for the future, which we set out at our party conference. 37 new policies we have.
I know.
37 new policies we set out.
I'll just ask a 5th time, who is the leader of the Welsh Conservatives?
Look, I've explained that we've got a positive new programme.
If you don't know, you can say it's totally fine.
In the months and years ahead.
Just the sixth one.
We've got a relatively new leader, and I'm afraid the name escapes me.
I know, he's called Darren Millar, and that does matter because the party is disappearing rapidly into the sand of a Welsh beach. When will you start governing for the whole country? You're going back into your heartlands of England. Wales has now lost you, it seems, and next May's elections will be a disaster.
No, I don't think that's true at all. We are governing for the whole country. I mean, the plans, I've mentioned some of the plans we set out at our party conference a couple of months ago, and those are plans for the whole country, like saving money from welfare, cutting stamp duty, ending illegal immigration, recruiting more police officers. By the way, that 10,000 extra police officer pledge applies in Wales as well as in England. So those are all policies that are for the entire country. They'll benefit all of our United Kingdom, things like the reduction in welfare spending, for example, controlling illegal immigration. Those are policies for the whole United Kingdom. So, and we are going to be fighting everywhere. Look, it's tougher in some places than others, obviously, but we are going to be fighting everywhere.
I'll just find on a really serious issue, Jess Phillips is still there as safeguarding minister. Some critics say you're making political capital out of the suffering of these poor victims of the grooming gangs. 5 or so don't want her to be there. Apparently 5 do want her to be there in charge of that. I mean, do you still think she should go? Is that the answer? Or surely, just frankly, all parties should get behind these victims and deliver justice for them?
Well, we are supporting those 5 survivors who have lost confidence in Jess Phillips. They say they will only return to the survivors consultation panel if Jess Phillips resigns as the minister responsible. She has lost their confidence, and we are supporting those survivors in what they've said. Labour never wanted this inquiry into the rape gang scandal in the first place. When we first raised it, when Camilla and I first raised it back in January, Keir Starmer smeared us as jumping on a far-right bandwagon. That was a disgraceful thing of Keir Starmer to say. It was only when faced with a vote in Parliament, I think it was in June of this year, they finally capitulated, and here they are several months later, still dragging their heels and not listening to what these survivors like Fiona Goddard are saying. The government need to start listening to the survivors and regain their confidence. And unfortunately, the survivors have said they don't have confidence in Jess Phillips.
Look, thank you very much for your time today, Chris Philp. We do appreciate it. Thank you, sir, for joining us today on Camilla Tominey on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got an unsettled week of weather in store across the UK, all of us seeing rain at times, often quite blustery, although it will turn a bit milder towards the end of the week and certainly into next weekend. At the moment, we've got low pressure feeding its way southeastwards across the UK, tightly packed isobars, indicating quite blustery weather too, and certainly as we head into the evening and through the overnight period, quite a blustery feel to the weather across the UK. Outbreaks of rain gradually clearing from the south and southwest, leaving some clear spells in the south, whereas it's very showery across northern and central parts and blustery winds, even a little bit of winteriness across the high ground in Scotland, and temperatures low enough here for a touch of frost in some rural spots, but staying mostly frost-free towards the south with temperatures near double figures in some towns and cities. So we start the new working week on quite a showery note, certainly across the north of Scotland, lots of showers packing in on that northerly breeze. Still a bit wintry, those showers across the highest ground in Scotland, a touch of frost to say in rural spots to start the day. Mostly fine across the southern parts of Scotland, a few showers across Northern Ireland, and a few showers too pushing across Northern England, North Wales into the Midlands, with some sunshine to start the day on Monday across the far south of England. As we go through the rest of the day, it stays quite showery in the morning, quite a blustery northerly breeze too. The showers and those winds gradually ease though from the west as we go into the afternoon, and then some more persistent rain starts to approach Northern Ireland by the very end of the day. Once again, it's quite chilly for the time of year, certainly across the north and northeast of the UK. Here temperatures no better than 7 or 8 Celsius in a few spots, whereas down towards the south and southwest, nearer average at around 13 or 14 degrees. Outbreaks of rain out towards the west will push eastwards into Tuesday morning, and Tuesday looks like a very breezy day with further showers or longer spells of rain, so staying quite unsettled and again quite chilly for the time of year with temperatures into the low teens at the very best. That's into the low to mid 50s in Fahrenheit. Low pressure is dominant for the rest of the week, so it stays pretty unsettled, further showers or longer spells of rain to come, but at least those temperatures start to climb during the latter stages of the week.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Joining me now is Zia Youssef, who's the head of policy at Reform UK. Zia Youssef, great to see you. I saw you, of course, on the night of the count Thursday night. You didn't win Caerphilly. You were down as favourites. What's gone wrong?
Well, it was disappointing not to win on the night, but it was a historic day for Reform and for Welsh politics. There was a historic realignment going on, Chris, in Welsh politics, a historic realignment in British politics. Who would have thought that the Labour Party and the Tory Party, the two grand old parties for 100 years, between them, got 13% of the vote. Reform delivered, again, disappointed we didn't win, but we got almost 3 times as many votes as the Tories and Labour combined. As you just said, the Tories down to 2%. They are irrelevant in Wales, just as they're irrelevant in the rest of the country. Labour down to 11 points. And look, it's clear now that ahead of the Senate elections next May, Wales is going to be a straight-up battle between Plaid and Reform.
I asked Chris Philp, who is the Tory leader in Wales. He couldn't say over 6 times. Who's your leader in Wales?
We don't have one yet.
Well, why is that then? That's a real important point.
Well, it is. And one of the things that we are focused on is making sure a big part of why Reform exists is we take the view that the existing calibre of personnel across both of the two old parties is not acceptable. And therefore, we are working hard to ensure we have exceptional people. We're looking for those people right now. We did have an amazing candidate, Claire Powell, who worked incredibly hard, really proud of the candidate, of the campaign he fought. I think he will be in the Senate next year. Look, tactical voting clearly had a big impact.
A progressive stitch-up, as some were saying.
Yeah, clearly, but tactical voting will not, because of the different electoral system that happens in the Senate elections in May next year, tactical voting will really not be an issue. And actually, if you had looked without the tactical voting, it would have been 3 seats each if you were to sort of an analysis of that. So look, we are very proud of what's been achieved in Wales. Remember as well, last time round, Reform won 1.7% of the vote. We got 1.7 to 36%. So the momentum is with us.
It seems that there's anger with the two main parties. Yeah, and you're benefiting, as is Plaid.
Yeah, right. So their vote, I think off the top of my head, is about up 18 points on last time. Ours was up 34 points. So Reform still has more momentum than any other political party in this country. I'm very confident we'll have an outstanding set of elections in Wales next year.
OK, so they've finally caught this individual who was freed wrongly in Essex, Gabatu. Your reaction to that, please?
Relieved that he's been apprehended. I'm not even going to say caught, because looking at the CCTV footage and by eyewitness accounts, he wasn't even trying to evade the police. In fact, when he came out, according to an eyewitness, very credible reports in the Telegraph, he was told to leave the prison. He tried going back in on a multitude of occasions. They gave him some money and told him to go to the station. I tweeted out yesterday that Britain's descent, the British state's descent into a Monty Python sketch is pretty much complete. I will say this too. My heart goes out to the victim and to the victim's family, and how anyone who has been the victim of sexual assault in this country can have any faith in this Labour government or the apparatus of state is beyond. He was released, quote unquote, accidentally. And I'll say this too,
so why did you say on that point accidentally? Because you said that yesterday on social media, and some thought you meant that they did it on purpose. It's obviously wrong to release him. It was a mistaken release, but that accidentally fuels maybe misreporting, drives anger about. Well, obviously, everyone's crossed, but it wasn't. It was by mistake this happened, right?
I chose my language very carefully, and it is accurate language. I'm merely reflecting the word accidentally. The word accidentally is exactly what the state is currently saying.
Your party might be in power after 2029. What would you do with the issue of Chelmsford Prison? Who should be resigning? Whose heads on the block?
Hold on. Let's. let's zoom out here. This man should never have been in the country, Chris. So the first thing is let's not treat the symptom. Let's secure our borders. Let's have Britain actually have some sovereignty. We need to do the things that the Tories did not do for 14 years. They insult the intelligence of everyone watching this programme when they talk about everything that needs to be done. They had 14 years. They didn't leave the ECHR. We need to do that. Then we need to derogate from every international treaty that would otherwise be used to frustrate deportations. We're going to do that too, including the 1951 Refugee Convention. Then we need to build enough detention capacity. We need to make sure that anybody who arrives in this country illegally, every single one without exception, is put into detention and deported. And not just them, actually, the people who are already here in this country illegally must be deported.
You're the head of policy at Reform UK. That will take years and years and years. You haven't even got a single.
That doesn't mean it's not worth doing. That does not mean it's not worth doing.
In House of Lords. I mean, how will you get through that? That programme is exciting. It's almost a silver bullet, which I say can't happen. How will you do this?
I will tell you this. In Nigel's first year, Nigel's Prime Ministership, if that is the result that the British people choose to deliver, the next general election will be the most transformative legislative agenda, and a lot of that will happen in our first year. Mark my words, we are working on that. We know, of course, the House of Lords are going to frustrate us. It's largely a loyalty scheme.
You haven't got
it's the peers. Well, why is that? Because the House of Lords has become a loyalty scheme for donors to the Labour Party and the Tory Party and failed civil servants. The very people, by the way, who wouldn't even want to leave the ECHR.
You haven't got a shadow cabinet. You're head of policy. You've got a leader.
We will, before we go into the next...
and a deputy leader. Who can I talk to about justice and home affairs and your party?
Chris, we are an insurgent start-up party. We're very proud of what we've achieved in a very short period of time. Of course, we've got work to do, and we're working really hard to do that. Prior to the next general election, again, you can hold me to this, we will put in front of the British people, Nigel will put in front of the British people, a shadow cabinet of the quality that has not been seen in this country in my lifetime.
That'll be the company bosses and others, experts in the field?
It'll be lots of different people. We've already guided around half of Nigel's cabinet. If number one, it'll be a smaller cabinet. No useful decision-making meeting has 25 people in.
So what, how big, 15, 12?
I'm not going to give you a precise number. It will be smaller than it is currently. And around half of those people we would expect to not be MPs. So some of them will be, some of them won't be. Okay. We will optimise for talent and people who have achieved great things in the real world, not people... You know, the only quality you need to be Chancellor of this country at the moment is to have carried an MP's bag around for a few years and maybe been in the complaints department at Halifax. This is a big reason why...
That's our system that we won for centuries, and you're saying it's broken.
It is absolutely broken, yeah. And how many times has Keir Starmer described as, quote, appalling actions that have happened on his watch? They refuse to take any accountability. Let's see if even this guy is going to get deported. I would not take that as a given whatsoever. I'm sure as we speak, the human rights industrial complex are mobilising to try and keep this man in the country. I'll point this out too. Keir Starmer, when he was a barrister, built a career. He built a career when he was a barrister of trying to free men exactly like this, in some cases actually men who manifold numbers of people at a time. He built a career trying to stop such deportations. So you've got to remember all of these things, that this is a Labour cabinet that, I'm afraid, do not have the interests of British people.
Well, they follow the rules, don't they? They follow the rules that have been set by repeated governments, the Human Rights Act, the Labour government...
They're following rules.
But there's a point to that, isn't there? That we live by rules. Rules is what govern us. What you're going to do is blow the whole thing up and see where the chips fall, and that's alarming.
What we're saying is that the rules that that need to exist in this country need to exist for the benefit of British people, of British citizens, not for foreign citizens. What has happened now is that actually the system of English common law that served this great country brilliantly for centuries has now collapsed in favour of the supremacy of foreign courts, foreign judges, that basically now mean that British people cannot have a border, let alone a secure border, can't even have a border. I mean, this man, as we speak, there are going to be people coming across the channel illegally. Nothing is being done to stop that from happening. That is beyond unacceptable. And the learned helplessness that now exists in this country amongst the political class, they don't seem to understand that Parliament is sovereign. That Parliament is absolutely capable of saying, enough of all of this, we are going to make laws in the House of Commons and inside Parliament for the British people.
Will you get a grip? I asked earlier of West Street and the Health Secretary, why can't you just get a grip and run this country properly? Things keep going repeatedly wrong. Last week's one of the worst weeks I can remember covering politics. I've been doing it for 20 years. Why should viewers, listeners, GB News viewers and listeners believe you when you say you can do any better?
Nigel has built a career over 30 years. People know what he stands for. You can go online, go and look on YouTube. He was making videos about going out into the channel on his YouTube channel.
He's never run out of things, Yusuf. He's existed in opposition.
Years ago.
He existed in opposition against things. He's a campaigner. What's the evidence he can do any better?
Well, number one, he is the leader of a party that has come from absolutely nowhere to be now, I would argue, in pole position in this country. He's built an amazing organisation there. I've seen firsthand the sort of talent he's able to attract. Okay. But let's also be clear. We need talent in this country, in the political class, but we also have to have a political leader who believes that laws in this country should be made for the betterment of the lives of British citizens. And I'm afraid we have not had that for decades. One of the reasons why we need an insurgent party like Reform to do this is because the only way you actually get to become Prime Minister of this country for the two old parties is by becoming leader of that party. The only way you do that is buying off your most senior MPs with the highest officers of the land. That is not something Nigel has to do.
OK. Well, Zia Yusuf, thank you for joining us today on GB News Live in the studio. We do appreciate it.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. We've got showers and longer spells of rain across western parts of the Mediterranean at the moment. Further east, some warm sunshine. We can see Madeira seeing some showery outbreaks of rain for the next few days. Temperatures in the low 20s. The risk of a few showers for southern Spain and Portugal. But in the sunshine, temperatures above average. Plenty of dry weather across Italy and Greece at the moment. Temperatures 25, 26 Celsius. So feeling warm in that sunshine, and it stays pretty settled the next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Joining me now is Madeleine Sumption. She's the director of the Migration Observatory at Oxford University. Madeleine Sumption, thank you for joining us. A lot of breaking news today. Your reaction to the fact this individual has now been detained after 48 hours?
Yes, well, that was a rather astonishing episode, wasn't it? It's in some ways more of an issue of the prison service and of the prison service than an immigration question per se. There's obviously lots of broader issues with the asylum system and how that's managed, but I would not really an immigration question. It's more of a criminal justice and prisons one.
Yes, exactly. But of course, it does go to the heart of the small boats crisis. Who is crossing the channel? Who is coming here? Your role is watching these numbers coming across our southern border. How many small migrants are you expecting to come this year? We've already beat the figure, haven't we, for all of last year, and it's only the third week of October.
We have. The numbers they fluctuate up and down over time. And we were in a period where we were seeing consistent increases really starting around October, November last year. And so it looked for a while like this could be the highest year on record. They've actually flattened out a little bit. So we're now sort of similar to the peak figures that we were seeing around 2022. The numbers are really unpredictable, though. It's very difficult to know, what the next few months will look like.
There could be over 50,000, some are saying. Can I ask you who's to blame for this? We've heard from Keir Starmer calling them Farage boats. We heard a similar response in other interviews with other members of his team. They clearly think they can pin the small boats crisis on Brexit, on that choice supported by Nigel Farage and other mainly Conservative MPs to leave the European Union. Is that fair to blame Brexit for the small boats crisis?
I think that's a pretty large overstatement. I think there is some evidence that there are some people in Europe who, asylum seekers who are crossing the Channel in northern France, who in some cases have already been refused asylum in Europe. And they tell researchers, and there have been some research projects, they've told people that because the UK is no longer in the European Union, they feel that they can come over to the UK. And the UK doesn't now know that they've got that past asylum application in Europe, and so they'll get a new decision. So there is some evidence of that, but there's a lot of other stuff that's been going on that's led to those higher numbers. We've seen a professionalisation, for example, of the smuggling outfits in northern France, making it much easier for people to get across. So I think, we don't know how big the impact of Brexit is. I would be surprised if it was responsible for most of that increase. I think there's a lot of other stuff going on that has led to those numbers going up.
If you were putting a percentage on it, would it be 10%, 15, 20?
I wish I could answer that question. It's really hard. I mean, qualitative interviews, which don't give us statistics, but show that there are substantial numbers of people who cite this as a reason, but it's certainly not the only reason. But I would imagine probably a minority, but we really just don't have the evidence, unfortunately.
And the critics say, of course, that means we're not part of this Dublin Convention, so we can't return individuals to the country where they first may have claimed asylum. Have critics got a point about that? And that's maybe why they say, they talk about Brexit, because of this issue that the levers aren't there anymore in our government now we're outside the European Union.
Yeah, so there are two issues here. One is, can the UK return people to France or Italy or Greece or wherever they arrived? Now, the reality is that even when we were with the European Union, even though in theory the UK had the ability to do that, in practice it was actually quite unusual. We were looking maybe a few hundred, possibly 1,000 people per year. So the majority of people were never returned through that system. The bit that I think is potentially a bit more interesting is the sharing of the data, the fact that the UK no longer knows who has claimed asylum in Europe. And that data sharing system wasn't perfect before Brexit either. But there are probably some people who, if we had the data sharing in place still, the UK might not even need to do to adjudicate the asylum claim, because they could say, oh, well, we see that you've already had a claim refused in France, so we don't need to adjudicate that here. And they could either go straight into the appeals system or into a return system, which again, as well, is something that has been a real challenge for decades now, the returns part of the picture.
And the approach of the government is to try and find agreement, isn't it, with other countries to take more individuals back. But we have given hundreds of millions of our money, of taxpayers' money to France for very little return. Are people right to be frustrated with the French attitude to this?
I think one of the things that is very tricky for the government in the UK is that we have a lot of discussion about sovereignty and enforcing the border, but actually we are very dependent on other countries, and that this is the case around the world. You look at the United States, incredibly dependent on Mexico, and has actually been able to secure Mexico's cooperation on this issue. And so I think the France effectively, perhaps quite reasonably, doesn't really see this as their problem. It's not as high a political priority in France as it is here. So I think in theory we know that if the UK were able to persuade France to accept back a large majority of the people who crossed in small boats, it would have a dramatic impact on that route, and it would make it much less likely that people would attempt it. In practice, France, for whatever reason, has not seen it as a priority to do that.
And that's making it a priority. We heard, didn't we? I was following the speech, of course, given by the French president earlier this year, and he talked about the pressure put on the services in northern France. I think he said that for every euro it costs the UK, it's costing them €3 in northern France just dealing with the crisis. So he's trying to work out how they can make the French wake up and deal with it properly and stop a land across. But maybe they feel the problem isn't theirs anymore when they cross.
I mean, France is frustrated by the situation, as you say. It's especially in northern France. There are people who are grouping in those areas. There's resources of the French police, which of course the UK is contributing to. So it's not that they don't care about this at all. I think they would like to see it end. It's just that it's also complicated on our side and less on their side and less of a priority, I think.
It's been great to see you this morning on Camilla Tominey's show, Director of the Migration Observatory at Oxford University. Really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you. And thank you to all my guests on a extremely busy morning on the Camilla Tominey show. I've loved presenting it. I hope you enjoyed watching it.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got an unsettled week of weather in store across the UK, all of us seeing rain at times, often quite blustery, although it will turn a bit milder towards the end of the week and certainly into next weekend. At the moment, we've got low pressure feeding its way southeastwards across the UK, tightly packed isobars, indicating quite blustery weather too, and certainly as we head into the evening and through the overnight period, quite a blustery feel to the weather across the UK. Outbreaks of rain gradually clearing from the south and southwest, leaving some clear spells in the south, whereas it's very showery across northern and central parts and blustery winds, even a little bit of winteriness across the high ground in Scotland, and temperatures low enough here for a touch of frost in some rural spots, but staying mostly frost-free towards the south with temperatures near double figures in some towns and cities. So we start the new working week on quite a showery note, certainly across the north of Scotland, lots of showers packing in on that northerly breeze. Still a bit wintry, those showers across the highest ground in Scotland, a touch